Hi everyone, this is Kelly Starr with Earth Matterz, and we're with Matterz of Hasi Bread, and he supplies the only bread that we have available on our website to add on to your order, to your CSA veggie bundles or fruit bundles. And he actually has my favorite bread, and I'm just so happy to connect with him and share with you guys what he's about and how he started this journey making bread, and just more about his ingredients. Also, I love any food that's purple or anything that's purple. So, Hazy's bread for me is such a joy because it has butterfly pea pod in it, and I just love it so much. It's so beautiful. So here he is, and he's going to tell us his story. Hi.
Hi, Kali. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and thank you for offering this platform for all your wonderful clients and for folding me into your services. And I think it's great what you're doing, sort of pulling together really thoughtful and intentional products. So I'm proud to be one of those vendors for you. So I guess we'll start with just where I started. I guess a couple of years ago. It's coming on 3 years now. I learned how to bake bread in Austria, actually. So I'm half Austrian, and I learned from a 4-generation baker's family, and they took me under their wing in 2017 when I went over there for a couple weeks, and I learned from them. I learned from them the process of making sourdough. I took notes, and it was very familial. And when I came back to the States, I live in California. I'm from California. I just practiced making bread and practiced and gave bread away to friends and family and neighbors and coworkers. And it slowly just organically developed into a business where people just wanted this test bread, so to speak, that I was making every week. And so through this process, I sort of developed my own style, my own flavor, based off of this Austrian tradition of bread making. So I started incorporating blue pea pods, like Kali mentioned, which are actually the pods from the pea flour itself. And they tint the water that I use in the dough with this beautiful blue hue. And they also have antioxidant properties as well. So they're used in Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine. They're beautiful, they're organic, they come from Thailand. So I started using that in the bread, and it turned out beautifully. And then I used turmeric, which is just your standard turmeric. However, I get mine from India, actually. I get it imported. And each batch of turmeric that I use is freshly milled as well. And it's super healthy for you. It's an anti-inflammatory. A bunch of health benefits to turmeric, as most of you already know, and it gives it a beautiful yellow color. So then this whole process developed into a melding of these two colors. The brand, which is blue and yellow as well, I just sort of developed this logo and this brand around blue and yellow. And as Kali mentioned, so I don't know if she mentioned actually, so my slogan is Hazy Art is in Bread. So it's a play on words about the visual aesthetic of Hazy Bread, which is this blue and yellow experience, but also highlighting the art of bread making itself. So for me, that means using the best quality ingredients. For instance, I mill my own flour in-house. So this is the mill that I actually use back here. I mill 2 types of grains. It's rye and Khorasan. They're these two. Oops, I don't know if you can see that. I probably shouldn't do that, but
I can see that. Looks great.
But yeah, I use 2 different species of wheat for the most part, which are rye and Khorasan. They're 2 ancient grain species, and I mill it all in-house. So that gives it a lot of nutrients. It's kind of like the equivalent of picking fruit off the tree in terms of bread making. So the flour that I use is hot off the mill, or warm, I should say, off the mill. It makes you feel great, and you can really taste the difference in those whole grains as well. And then one last component that makes art is in bread. Art, in my opinion, is the sourdough starter. So this is my sourdough starter. His name is Dwight Schrute, like from The Office.
Mm-hmm.
He's 2.5 years old, and this is what rises all the bread. So it's a leavening agent for all the bread that we make at Hasi Bread. So basically, it's a living organism that you feed regularly to keep alive and healthy. And this is what we call a natural fermentation. So that's what makes a real sourdough, is that fermented process that gives that acidity to the bread, which isn't as acidic as most people are brought up to believe, because a lot of the bread that we get at the stores actually has an additive, a flavor of sour to the sourdough. So the sourdough you get from Hasi Bread is a little bit more mild, but that is the basis of sourdough, is a fermented product. So we ferment ours for between 24 and 30 hours. So it's a very long and cold fermentation. And that is ultimately what brings really complex flavors, a lot of health benefits to fermented foods, really good for your gut health. It's the same idea with kimchi, sauerkraut. All those fermented foods have health benefits, and sourdough is one of them as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that was kind of a melding of my story and the ingredients together. But yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's so good to hear your background, and yeah. And I know I said butterfly pea pod is purple. I know most people say it's blue, but I just see it as purple to me. But it's like it is. It's just like that magical blue color. And
Yeah,
I use it when I'm making tea, and then I'll like put the lemon juice in it so it changes color and then just becomes magenta. And
yeah,
that's always really fun at events and whatnot, because then a lot of people don't expect this beautiful thing just all naturally to just change colors. There's just a lot of magical things about this flower. And you're the first
absolutely.
person that I know that is using it in bread. And I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, I love it too. When I first saw it, I was just blown away. It was so beautiful, so vibrant. And it has a line of health benefits as well. So it can only help you, really.
Yes, and the turmeric and the grain and
Exactly.
the fermentation. And how do you get it to like swirl in color? Like how is it some blue and some yellow?
So that's the process that I use. So that's the artistic component for me. That's where I get to be creative. Um, but it's basically just a layering of the two doughs at a certain stage of my process. And that's when, one of the funnest parts for me is combining those colors and then watching them sort of marble together in this unique way, so that every loaf is really different, you
Yeah,
know.
I can tell that brings you joy, because every time I cut a loaf, I'm like, ooh, like it's just a little bit different than the last one. Like, how did he do it this way? And I actually kind of feel like, okay, this is the person who's behind it. And I don't know, there's just something about it where I just kind of think, oh, he must have been so proud of this when I cut it. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a very prideful thing for me too. I take a lot of pride in it. Every batch does turn out a little bit different. Even if you guys don't notice it, I notice every little difference.
Mm-hmm.
That has to do with the weather, the humidity, the timing. It's a very creative process, but that is ultimately what is the addiction of bread making for me, is because of that. It's always unique, and it's always getting a little bit better. These little details, but ultimately just being creative and allowing that creative flow to go through and funnel through the bread, and then you get this end product that is just so good.
Yeah. And so
So satisfying.
I know it sounds incredible, and the whole process sounds amazing. And it just remember that you have some other flavors that you do. And I tried one of them with the pumpkin seed, and I gave some of that to my mom. She's obsessed with it. And so I know right now, we're working with, how many orders that we get from everybody determines, how many flavors we're going to be able to have ongoing. And right now we're sticking to the one basic it's not basic, but just one loaf, right? And but I know that you do, for the possibility of us getting future, different things. What are some of the other things that you do for your customers?
Yeah. So what I've been implementing recently is I do weekly specials. So I do have my own online ordering system as well. But so I do have seeded loaves. So like you said, pumpkin seed is a favorite one, and that's sort of my Austrian heritage as well. Because in Austria, you get these pumpkin seed loaves that are just so amazing with these toasted pumpkin seeds. So that's kind of an homage to my Austrian roots. I also do a sesame seed, which is another favorite. And then recently, I've been doing a little more experimental things like a garden rosemary and olive loaf, which is what I'm actually doing this
Oh,
weekend.
wow.
So I actually grew rosemary outside of the bakery here, and I use that rosemary in the bread. But of course, I can only do that once a month or something, just to let it grow again.
Hmm.
Um, and then let's see, a couple of weeks ago, I did a jalapeno cheddar, which was just super bold in flavor. Um, I've done a poppy seed loaf. I've done a chocolate chip sourdough, which most people might be a little iffy about, but once you try it, it's this incredible dance of sweet and savory. And
Hmm.
that's been a local like secret menu favorite. People just message me asking if I could throw some chocolate chips in there, and it's amazing as
Oh, I
well.
can imagine.
Yeah, so really, it's really just about being creative and listening to what people like, and then bringing it back once in a while just to keep things exciting, to switch things up on a weekly basis.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's like how I do my soups, or you kind of just go with what you are working with. And if you don't have rosemary right next to you, then you're not going to use it that time. For me,
Yes.
it's like if the farm doesn't have, a certain vegetable, then that's just not what I'm not going to go search for it somewhere else.
Right.
I'm working directly with them. So I really love that kind of, that's how we can all be doing food, is just, it's so much more natural that way, instead of reaching out and trying to get these ingredients sourced from, further away, or just, or basically just, there's just something that feels good about going with the flow of the whole experience, and so when you explain that the rosemary, you won't always do it because you want it to grow a little more, and then you'll
Mhm.
start doing it again, and then you wait a little bit, and that's the idea. I love it.
Absolutely. I think it all feeds into inspiration, right? And
Hmm.
not feeling like you're funneled into, getting tomatoes when they're not ready, or, getting just letting it go with the flow, like you said, and that's what brings a lot of inspiration and creativity to food, and then consuming it, you consume that sort of energy as well.
That's true. You do. You do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we love to keep everything inspiring.
Yeah.
But I also encourage people, when they're working with their bundle, just start with the things that really inspire you the most first. Like if you don't really feel like using the kale tonight, you can wait a moment and just like start with the thing that makes you feel like awesome first, and then
Yeah.
go with that, and then you'll probably add some of the kale in with it. But if you feel it in your soul in that moment, just start there.
Yeah, that's real. That's cooking right there.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. And any last words about anything?
No, thank you, Kali. I appreciate you having me on, and keep giving that energy and sharing that energy with folks and doing good work. So thank you.
Thank you.